Final hour of the Connor Happer Show starts now. Summer school rolls on. We roll through all the teams in the Big Ten, talk to somebody who covers the team. And today it is the University of Southern California Trojans. And Scott Wolf from Inside USC joins. Scott, thanks for coming on.
How you doing?
We're doing well. We're rolling through a Wednesday, talking football and some other things. We talked some weird news and some food questions from the folks who tweet in the tweet bag and trying to answer their weird questions. So it's been a good day so far.
Sounds interesting.
How are things in Southern California?
Warm as usual this time of year,
yeah.
But a little quiet in terms of football because people here tend not to think too much about college football until at least they start practicing, which will happen this weekend for USC. So, everybody's kind of curious, especially, me, obviously, about how this move to the Big Ten is going to work out.
Sure.
And we'll see.
Let's start off with the big picture. ESPN put out their list of the toughest schedules from around the country. They list USC as having the toughest Power 4 non-conference schedule. The Trojans play kind of a top 15 type LSU team. They got Utah State, who's picked kind of middle of the pack in the Mountain West, and they finished the season with Notre Dame, who's in that conversation of top 5 in the country. So 2 of those 3 very difficult games in the non-con. What's your read on this? How difficult is this for USC?
Well, the first 3 weeks are going to be I think they're going to almost determine the season because they play LSU in the first week. And then in the third game, they got to go to Ann Arbor and play Michigan.
Yeah. And,
I'm curious if Michigan is still Michigan without Jim Harbaugh. But, USC's not played anywhere like Ann Arbor in years. So this is going to be a wake-up call for them to go there, no matter how good Michigan is. And, I think from USC's perspective, the LSU game is kind of a mystery because there's some guys that are not on the team anymore at LSU on offense, especially that were so big last year. But, you got to believe LSU's got some great athletes, especially on defense. And, USC has to replace its quarterback, and they've got issues. So if they lose, the problem with losing to LSU isn't they losing to LSU, because that's a good program. The problem is it's going to reinforce this feeling of discontent that surrounded the program last season with Lincoln Riley.
Yeah, and speaking to that, Lincoln Riley was asked some really tough questions at Big Ten Media Days. He was his feet were kind of held to the fire almost more than any other coach up on the podium. What did you take away from his appearances at Big Ten Media Days?
Well, I thought it was a disaster in some respects, specifically when he was asked about playing Notre Dame.
Yeah,
and he talked like he would like to get out of that game if possible. And we already know he tried to get out of the LSU game unsuccessfully. And, they dropped Ole Miss. And it seems like he doesn't want to play anybody now in the non-conference. But, Notre Dame goes back to 1926. And, we're dealing with a guy, Lincoln Riley. And I know, he's probably hated by the people listening to this program right now, which is fine by me. But this is a guy who has zero appreciation of the tradition of USC, and he doesn't care. He doesn't try to meet the boosters. He doesn't try to meet the alumni. He doesn't even walk the campus to meet students or faculty or staff or whoever, public. He makes no effort. So I don't think he understands the backlash that's coming if he actually does try to get out of that rivalry, because that's the glamour game for USC. They have 2 big games, UCLA and Notre Dame, but like I said, it's almost a 100-year rivalry, and he doesn't understand it because I don't think he cares. I think from his point of view, he'll go to the NFL anyways. sooner or later. So he doesn't really care what the backlash would be.
One of the things he did last year was if I'm remembering it correctly, was restrict some of the access that media would have to the team. I mean, almost a year removed from that, how has that been received among the LA media?
Well, he's restricted the media more than it's used to being restricted, but at the same time, from what I heard at Oklahoma, he had almost no media interaction.
Yeah.
And so he's kind of had to bend in that respect to the LA media. But he did ban a reporter last season for a few days because he didn't like some stuff that was written. But he's not a people person, and the people in LA didn't know that. Maybe you guys knew that from your proximity to Oklahoma, but people didn't really know that when he got the USC job, and they've learned it the last couple seasons. And it's okay. You don't have to be a people person if you're winning. But the problem last year is he started losing, and then he had no base of support that he could rely on. So if he doesn't win this year, things are going to get pretty dicey for him at SC.
Well, he did add a new defensive coordinator, plucked D'Anton Lynn from UCLA. Is this the guy that can turn around a defense that was pretty porous last season?
Well, I think the easy answer is he's got to make them better because the bar was so low under Alex Grinch. So they're going to be better than they were with Lynn. The question is going to be, how are they going to do in these big games, these marquee games? Are they going to be better in those games? And you look at the defense. They're going to have at least two guys starting who were starting at Oregon State last year, and they're good players. But it just shows you when USC's taking guys from Oregon State, something's wrong with the program. So it might be a little much to ask for like a huge improvement in one season, but they will be better. The flip side of that is the offense might be worse because you don't have Caleb Williams anymore.
Yeah, and that's right where I was going with my next question. Miller Moss, he did get everyone excited with that 370-plus passing performance in the Holiday Bowl last season. I'm just wondering, is that obviously that kind of production is not sustainable every single game, but what do you think his projection for the season should be?
Well, I think the bowl game, I think, unfortunately, kind of has raised expectations to an unrealistic level.
Yeah.
Because you're dealing with a quarterback who's nowhere near as athletic as Caleb Williams was. And so much of the offense the last 2 years revolved around Williams making something out of nothing on plays. And, they're still going to be good. I mean, they could be very good offensively. Let me be clear about that, because they've got weapons, and Lincoln Riley might be a horrible defensive coach, but he does have good offenses. But I don't know. I mean, they've had trouble the last couple years at times in key stretches of games offensively, and that was with Caleb Williams. So it's just hard for me to believe it's going to be better with Miller Moss. And if it goes down, from what they've had the last couple of years, that's going to put the O-line under a lot of pressure because Moss is not the athlete Williams was.
Yeah.
And it's going to mean the running game has to step up. And the reason the running game hasn't really been important the last 2 years is because Lincoln Riley didn't value the running game. So I think he has to change his philosophy this year.
Talking to Scott Wolf of Inside USC in our summer school roll through the Big Ten. Scott, one of my favorite players in college football last year was the freshman wide receiver, Zachariah Branch. Just so electrifying, so much fun. He was good for a big play, it seemed like, every time out. What's his growth been like, and how does he fit into this offense this year?
Well, he's vital to the team. I mean, I think he's probably the most important player because they're going to need him to do something special on special teams. And then they're going to need him to start doing what he didn't do a lot last year, which is break some big plays on offense. And one of the reasons that he didn't is he didn't get enough touches last year, which is kind of crazy to think about, but that's just the way Riley's offense was. So he's got to become the focal point of the offense. And even if it means maybe giving him the ball on a reverse or something, just get the ball in his hands. So I think they've got to try to get him, 10 to 15 touches a game if they want to be successful. And if they don't, it's probably coaching malpractice on Riley's part.
All right. Do you have a sense of what the season might look like from a record perspective? Give us your prediction for USC this season.
There's so much up in the air because there's so many new guys on defense. You've got some questions, or I do at least, on the offensive line, new quarterback, and then you have, some tough games on the schedule. So I think it's fair to say, 8 wins is kind of the over-under right now. And frankly, if they win 8 games, I think people are going to be mad at USC about that. But if they go above it, people might be okay with it. But, they won 8 games last year and people were furious. So
yeah, it kind of matters how it happens, right?
Yeah, if you can beat Michigan or, the way the schedule is always set up for USC every other year, if you can beat UCLA and Notre Dame back to back, that's huge too. But they've never been in this territory before, playing these, Big Ten teams that are more physical than what they're accustomed to. And every game almost, I think, is going to have a hostile crowd on the road. So that's not something in the Pac-12 they had to deal with. They would go to Pac-12 games and the stadium might be half empty.
Yeah.
So that's the part to me that's going to really be worth monitoring, is how do they do in these hostile atmospheres, and how do they match up on the line of scrimmage with Wisconsin, Penn State, teams like that. Luckily, they don't have to play Ohio State. But those are the types of teams that, they're going to have problems with, I think, at least when it comes to physicality.
All right. That's Scott Wolf of Inside USC. Really appreciate you stopping by today, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And anytime you need me, I'm happy to come on.
All right. Absolutely. Check him out. He's got a website. It's Inside USC, covering all things Trojans. Josh, did you get the sense that Scott Wolf, not a big fan of Lincoln Riley?
That is my takeaway from your conversation. Yes.
I was getting strong don't like this guy vibes.
Boy, sure.
Yeah.
Revealed some things about Coach.
Yep. So if it's the name is Inside USC. So Inside USC, apparently Lincoln Riley not beloved.
Not
that was my big takeaway from that.